Welcome back. Well, there have been big developments in the airline industry in the last hour or so. The Department of Public Enterprises has announced that 6 new non-executive directors have been appointed to SAA. At the same time, a new airline called, originally Lift, will take over to the skies tomorrow. It's going to focus on the routes between Cape Town and Johannesburg. Well, the aviation expert, the editor of SA Flyer magazine, Guy Leitch, joins me now. Guy, good afternoon to you. I think we better start with SAA. 6 new directors. Is this partly, perhaps the start of the sort of rebirth of SAA? Are these the right people?
We hope so, Stephen. I've had a look at the list. I don't know all of them, but certainly from the bios provided, they seem to have a relatively solid grounding in aviation and in airlines in particular. So it gives hope that there aren't political appointments, but rather people who will be serious about making a go of the airline. We can only hope.
And I mean, SAA needs a lot of support, still in business rescue, probably still will need more money.
The question is how much. Yeah, the number been banding around, and I subscribe to the notion that it'll need at least 30 to 40 billion rand to turn it around or to get it back into some sort of new normal. And even that number is beginning to seem a little optimistic, given a report we got yesterday from IATA that says that international travel is not turning around as it was hoped.
Well, let's talk a bit about that, because a new airline called Lift is starting. I mean, why is it starting when so many other airlines are closing? What's different? It seems to have a different model.
When Lift was originally announced 6 months ago by Gilon Novick, we were very optimistic that he was indeed going to have a new model with a much lower cost base, taking advantage of the incredibly difficult times the airline industry finds itself in now, to get aircraft at really knockdown prices and to get crew, both pilots and cabin crew, at greatly reduced prices as well. We were optimistic that Gilon would compete on price. That no longer seems to be the case, as he's partnered with an existing operator called Global Airways, using their aircraft, using their crew, using their licenses, and so on. So he's effectively said he's no longer competing on price, but is now going to compete essentially on flexibility and service, which is a welcome breakthrough. People have often felt that they get unfairly penalized by other airlines in terms of having to change their flights at the last possible moment for whatever reason. So yeah, the model is slightly different, but it's worth pointing out that this isn't any Uber type model, even though he is in partnership with one of the leading lights of Uber in South Africa.
I mean, the idea that you can cancel your flight at the last minute and not be penalized for it, I mean, that's hugely attractive to myself as a consumer. But does it really work for an airline? I mean, there's a reason why airlines in the past have penalized people for doing that.
Very much so. The fundamental idea of a low-cost carrier is that it sells tickets in advance for the best possible price it can get, using what's called the dynamic pricing model. And if you allow people to switch their tickets around, it kind of undermines the model. But nonetheless, he's at least showing an ability to compete in that area, and saying, well, if you bought a ticket for, let's say, 750 Rand and you want to change it to a flight that might cost 1,500 Rand, you're going to have to pay that premium anyway. The idea being that there are enough flights out there to accommodate these people who do want to change their flights. So good luck to him. We can only hope that it continues to increase the competitiveness of an already incredibly competitive market.
Well, I mean, we need to talk a little bit about scale and the size of the market, don't we? And let me just sort of try and talk my way through what I'm trying to explain, which is that if the market is very big, if there are lots of people flying, you can probably fill the seats of the people who cancel their flights at the last minute with the people who want to buy seats at the last minute. So you can introduce that flexibility. Would I be right in thinking the bigger the market, the higher the number of people who want to fly and are buying tickets and cancelling tickets at the same time, the easier it is to manage a model like this? But the smaller the market, the harder it is to do, the more empty seats you'll have, and the less money you would make.
Absolutely. I mean, there are a couple of old truisms now. One of the great ones came out of the hotel industry, that there's nothing more perishable than last night's empty hotel bed, and the same with an airline seat. So the objective is obviously to fill flights at the last minute, and the dynamic pricing model, in a sense, allows airline tickets to be sold for next to nothing for the sake of filling seats. Look, the airlines have also not taken that principle to the extreme, because it allows a certain element of deselection, if you like. People would then wait till the last minute to buy tickets. So but airlines are able to sell tickets at the last minute, and I think that will enable an operator like Gideon to continue to do so. And who knows, maybe he'll begin to form partnerships with other operators, and with for instance, Vitality, where he was a leading light, and start offering seats from that source as well. I think that there's a lot of exciting potential coming down the line in an incredibly highly traded market already. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to prices of domestic tickets. We're expecting them to stay very competitive for the next year to 18 months. But once the full capacity has been taken up, largely with the return of international tourists, I think that the new price average is going to be significantly higher than it was pre-COVID.
Well, I mean, it takes to the next thing, which if the market for airlines now is relatively small, I would argue that probably the number of people flying in South Africa now, the number of customers, is probably smaller than it's been in, I don't know, the last 10 years because of COVID. It actually makes it harder for this new airline rather than easier if scale matters.
Very much so. We are seeing already, a significant move away from business class travel. I suppose it makes sense in that Lift is just on a one-class offering. As we see people getting used to webinars and online meetings and so on, so business travel will be affected. I think that the big concern we have is the return of international tourists. We were hoping for a return by this festive season. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's flatlining internationally around the world, largely because the various airports cannot agree health standards with their own particular authorities to match them up on both sides. I think that we're going to see, we've seen already the arrival of an unlikely competitor in the form of Airlink competing on the low-cost carrier market with a two-class product. How long that lasts, I don't know, but it's all good for the market. And I think that we must just see how it literally sort of unfolds over the next year or so.
Guy Leitch, I'll make a terrible joke. Is Lift going to be the vaccine for the airline industry? Time will tell. I won't ask you to answer that. It's too terrible for words. Thank you very much indeed. Guy Leitch is the editor of SAA Flyer magazine.